Good afternoon, guys.
Hello.
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 Well, so I'll tell you what, Rob, let me talk to you first, Rob Prizeman. Maybe you could just tell us about Libera and how they were first formed.
Well, it just sort of happened, really, to be honest. We didn't sort of come up with some incredible visionary plan. It just emerged, really, out of things that we were doing, and it seemed fun to do the sort of choral thing in a slightly different way. And I was sort of soundtrack composer, so it was kind of natural to use all sorts of different sounds and orchestral and keyboard and, drums and all sorts of other things in the music. So it's not choir boys with a beat, but it is choir boys with a good range of different instruments and different sounds, and the ways that the boys harmonise with each other is quite distinctive, really. But it's using the sounds of the treble voices that kind of hark back to the ancient sort of choral music of the church.
Yes, I think I first discovered you back in the 90s, and it was the album, I think it was called Libera, wasn't it? With the yellow cover and has Sanctus on it.
Yes, indeed, that was the first one.
We go back a long way.
Thank you.
And obviously the boys in the band change all the time. What's the age limit?
Well, they don't really leave, actually, in a way, because there's different manifestations of the group, so they carry on still singing with the group as tenors and basses and things in the future. But the sort of public form of it, in terms of the sort of stage shows that we take around the world and the recordings, are centred around the boys from the age of 7, say, through to the core group, which is going to be sort of 8 through to 14. They don't, as I say, have to leave. Obviously, all sorts of different circumstances prevail, interests change, but an awful lot of them stay there. So we performed something a couple of weeks ago with over 60 altogether, so it's quite a large group.
And do they find you, or do you find them?
Well, it's a combination, really, but they come from lots of different schools, and I'm sure you would better speak to Ben and Michael about this, really, as they come from one of the schools that we actually have a connection with, so they're all round South London, and sometimes they sort of talk to us, but to be honest, it's not something people tend to think about these days, really, even with a vaguely sort of raised profile like we do have. People tend not to really think about it unless they know more about it, personally, or through some connection with the family or through the school, and the schools are our greatest supporters, really.
You must tell me about the name, because I've been sort of hedging my bet. Is it Libera or Libera, first of all?
Well, Ben will correct you.
Yeah, it is Libera. It's the Latin word free, and I guess it kind of makes us. We chose it because it kind of shows that we do our own thing. It's a bit like we're free to do what we want.
Oh, that's a good reason. So it's Libera, from the Latin.
Yes.
Right, I shall remember that. So Ben, how long have you been with Libera?
Well, I've been with it 3 years, since I was 7, and I've enjoyed every part of it.
And how did you get involved then?
Well, Rob comes around to some of the schools, and he gives all the boys in year 3 an audition. So we have to sing a few notes, maybe a hymn, and the better boys come back for another second interview, and if Rob thinks we're good enough, then we get invited to come along.
And have you enjoyed singing? I mean, was singing something you wanted to do then, Ben?
Well, yeah, I always enjoyed singing, but I think Libera has helped me along with that quite a lot, to be honest. I mean, I used to be quite bad, but then Libera has, yeah, I know, but Libera has, Rob and all the older boys have helped me and taught me how to sing properly.
Quite bad? You mean you didn't think you could sing at all, but then you found out perhaps, well, I'm not so bad as I thought I was?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you're being very modest, Ben. What about Michael there? Hello, Michael. Michael Reaper, also
Hello.
aged 10.
Yeah.
You don't happen to go to the same school, do you, as Ben?
I do.
Oh, you do? Well, which school is it? Tell us.
Oh, it's called Corpus Christi, and
Which is Brixton. Okay. So, did you know about Libera before Rob found you?
No, I didn't.
And then when he found you and he said, "Would you like to be part of Libera?" What was your reaction to that?
Well, it was a great feeling, because I'd have something to be really proud of.
Absolutely.
And I'm still proud of it now in the future.
Quite right too, because it is a most wonderful choral sound, isn't it? And I have seen Libera on television, and you've done Songs of Praise. Have you been on TV yourself?
Yes, I have.
Which programmes have
Quite
you
a
been
lot
on?
of things. Songs of Praise.
Yeah, we went on Songs of Praise when we were in year 4.
Yep.
And you've done quite a lot in different television stations across the world, haven't you, of course, as well? So not
Yeah,
only
We
ones
did a
that you-
charity thing in America.
And we've also been guests on the Philippines Got Talent.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really? How did that go?
Even
wasn't
madder
bad.
than ours, actually.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think you better explain this then, Rob.
Well, we were guest artists on it, actually, but it's very much like a BGT, actually, but much wilder, if you can imagine anything even more hysterical. But they're both referring to a charity show we did last year in the States, which was, and they appeared. Who were you with on that?
Oh yeah, well we sang with both Meatloaf and Miley Cyrus.
Wow.
So,
Well, there's a
We got to meet
contrast.
her afterwards.
yeah.
And Mika.
No, we
got to
we
meet
got
her.
to
Meet her.
Oh, you was going to meet her. I thought you said and Mika.
afterwards.
And was she nice?
Yeah. One of the boys would have bragged if he was here. I had a right chinwag with Miley Cyrus.
Did
as he
you?
likes to say. No, I
Yes.
didn't. But one of the boys
Oh, I see.
likes to brag about that.
Do you
Yes.
think he was overstating it, do you think?
No, he did actually.
No, he
quite
did.
have a conversation.
Oh, what did she talk to you about?
Well, that's a secret thing.
Oh,
between
okay, yeah, better not go there.
Cassius and Miley Cyrus, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We shall never
So
know.
have you guys sung with anybody else famous apart from those two?
Well, we sang to the Pope once.
And at that charity thing in America, we also sang to Bill Clinton.
Yep.
So I love the way your priorities there. You go Miley Cyrus and Meatloaf, and then Bill Clinton and the Pope as sort of also rans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So guys, how do you fit in, the boys here, and how do you fit in all these rehearsals? Because you must have so many, I imagine, with your school times and studies and homework and all the rest of it. How do you manage that then? Where should we go? Michael?
Oh, well, we have to be committed, but sometimes you can't make it for reasons, but, well, we try and be there. And obviously you do have to kind of skip things which you want to do, but it's a good experience and it's worth doing.
It's worth it in the end, isn't it? Because there's nothing to me. There's nothing like the sound of the human voice, especially sung in harmony. I mean, I've been able to do that just with a few other guys, and when you hit it right, it just gives you that wonderful feeling inside, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. I mean, being with Libera is sort of a hobby because you're doing what you want with all your friends whenever you go away. And yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the characteristics of the group is that we are able to play around with the harmonies, and so someone like Michael, for instance, got a very high voice. We can use him doing some of those notes, and we can make the arrangements to suit the voices. So we are doing lots of interesting harmonies, and they will split into quite elaborate kind of harmonies sometimes, which makes it more exciting. But it also makes it for the group, so we're not sort of bound by a particular repertoire which has to be performed with a particular arrangement. We can change it to fit the soloists and so forth, which I suppose that's part of the free thing, really. That's not to say they don't also sing proper music, I say proper music as opposed to music that I've sort of arranged. But we did a couple of weeks ago, we did the Mozart Requiem, for instance, a full performance where the boys were doing all the solos and things. So they do a big range of music.
And I should add, actually, that you're going to be performing at the Guildford Cathedral on May the 11th, just a few days away at 7:30.
Oh yes, do
as
add
well.
that, please.
Oh,
yes.
I'll add it again at the end, don't worry.
Yes.
And I would love to be there. I mean, the most beautiful setting for just the most perfect kind of music as well, isn't it? So, guys, let's go to Ben this time, Ben Fairman. Do you get much free time?
Yeah, well, I mean, on the tours, we only do about 4 or 5 concerts, so at least half of the tour will be free time. But we also have some free time when we rehearse on Mondays and Fridays. We get to play a bit of table tennis, and we also have an N64, which is very popular with the boys. But yeah, we get quite a bit of free time.
So who do you like when it comes to music? Michael, let's go to you this time, Michael Reaper. Who do you like to listen to? Obviously outside of Libera.
Well, there's lots of people are popular with Gangnam Style.
And we've just been there as well, haven't we? Just been to South Korea, actually.
Yeah, we actually performed on the same night that Psy was performing.
Yeah.
And Ben, who do you like?
Well, I actually quite like old music, because my dad has kind of brought me into the tradition of listening to rock music from the 60s.
Oh, right.
So, yeah.
Any particular names from the 60s? Who do you like?
Maybe the Beatles.
Yeah, Rolling
yeah.
Stones.
Yeah.
All that kind of thing. Well, it's good.
And Queen.
Yep. Well, moving into the 70s and the 80s, of course. So is that something you'd like to do in later life, Michael, to be a singer in later life?
Well, obviously it takes a lot of commitment, but yeah, maybe it's a thought.
And Ben?
I'm not. I don't know. I've thought of it, and if I'm good enough, then I'd like to be one, but I'm not so sure.
Just see how it goes.
Yeah.
Well, you've got a wonderful start, haven't you?
Yeah.
So, Ben and Michael, thank you so much, both 10 years old, part of Libera. Rob, just before you go, for people thinking of coming along to Guildford Cathedral on the 11th, what kind of things can they expect to hear from you?
Well, it's quite a range, really. We do have quite a lot of things which will be familiar to people. I mean, tunes like I Vow to Thee, My Country. We do our own arrangement of the Pachelbel canon, with the boys going up to sort of top C's and things like that, and there's a little bit of Enya. There's also quite a lot of stuff which is original to us, and stuff which is done quite atmospherically using the acoustics of the building with the orchestra, and also because we have it's all lit and staged, so it's really quite it's a sort of pop concert in one way, but it's also a very imaginative way of, well, I hope people will think it's a very imaginative way of doing it. So,
and I guess this must have evolved quite greatly since the very early days. Because you started in the 80s, I think, didn't you?
Well, no, I mean it's the whole business of presenting something like that has become, of course, much more elaborate nowadays, because it's possible to do so many more interesting things, really, with the lighting and so forth. And so we, of course, use all that kind of technology. We don't, as it were, try to present it in a sort of monastic style. Although the boys would go and sing a mass or something in a very traditional style, quite often do, but in this context, of course, it's very much showbiz, and although they don't dance or do anything like that, they do move on stage, and the whole thing is a staged experience. It isn't just done from the choir stalls.
So, Michael, just before you go, and Ben as well, what's Rob like as a boss then? Is he a hard taskmaster?
Sneaky trick.
Well, he does push us quite hard, but then again, he rewards us with so much free time and so much opportunities to do all of the stuff that Libera do. Mm-hmm. We go on tour to many countries, and all this is basically free of charge.
Yeah.
Well, good for you. Thanks for joining us. Ben, they're telling it like it is there. Ben Fairman, Michael Reaper, both 10 years old of Libera. Rob Priceman, thank you for joining us as well, the founding musical director of Libera. Just, I'm going to play Sanctus from the album I mentioned earlier on from the 90s, wasn't it? I think around about the mid-90s.
Oh, well, that's the one we're doing on Saturday, which is based on the Pachelbel canon. So
there we are. I was going to ask you to lead us in nicely. You have done that. Libera will be performing at the Guildford Cathedral on May the 11th at 7:30, and go along and you will enjoy music like this. Thank you very much for coming along today.